All right, we're live. Rolling Market Mashup. We kind of do these just randomly now, but we're trying to do them once a week. And we figured we had to come on today because we're in the middle of a big sell off. And, last week I was with Dad and he really shed some light on some of the things that it seems like people on Wall Street look at. Whereas when you look at, what people are talking about on Twitter and what retail investors are talking about, it seems like a lot of the time they're missing the ball until after the fact on what the actual big money that's moving around behind the scenes is really keeping an eye on. And, last week I was just with Dad throughout the market. I think it was on Friday, and just listening in on some of the conversations he was having with some of the friends he used to work with when he was on Wall Street. And like I just said, the things that they were talking about were just not what you hear regularly. And I feel like I learned a ton that day alone. And I wish that that conversation happened even a couple weeks earlier, because it almost was such an obvious warning sign for what's been going on the last 2 days that you saw it coming. So, Dad, I'm just going to kick it over to you. What's your take on why the market's selling off, specifically technology, and where do you see things going from here, and what are you watching?
Well, we talked about it a little bit, in the past on these shows, that the 10-year bond is really important to what people do in the market. And also the spread between the 2-year and the 10-year bond is very important. So as the spread widens, which it's been doing pretty dramatically up until yesterday, the banks make a lot more money. And as it comes in, they make less money. So there's been a tremendous amount of money going into the banking sector because they know that the banks are going to do better. And money will come out of technology because, we're talking about companies that have P ratios that have almost never been seen before, or only happens once every couple of decades. And the valuations from a historic view is, very, very high. So as rates go up, people get nervous and they want to be out of the technology sector. And that's why you see a lot of money kind of coming into, again, the financials, and also going into the leaving home stocks, which obviously, this virus is finally, I think they've got a handle on most of it. And those stocks are through the roof. And even as the technology stocks get hit extremely hard, there's sectors of the market that are doing well. So, a lot of the people you hear on CNBC have been talking about the barbell approach. And if you did do that in an equal basis, you're not losing a lot of money. You're still going to be losing money because, the percentage down on some of these stocks is astronomical. But then again, when you look at where they come from, it's not that surprising.
Yeah, I think it's important to acknowledge that, like you just said, not all the sectors are down. And part of the reason the market's getting slammed so bad is the high growth tech sector really makes up over 60% of the market. I saw a data point this morning, and it was basically showing that, throughout this market correction over the last week, you've had energy up nicely, you've had materials up nicely, you've had some transportation stocks up good and cyclicals up good, but they don't make up enough of the overall market to actually bring up the sectors. And that's why, if you don't look beneath the surface, it just looks like the market's getting crushed. And obviously, if you're heavyweight in tech and high growth stocks, which I personally am, then today you're just getting an absolute bloodbath of a day, which, I guess my question for you is, you told me everyone's kind of looking at the 10-year, and your big concern was if it got up to 1.5. And I guess when I think about it, and I'm way newer to all this than you. You've been around for every market correction really in the last 30 or 40 years.
100.
But what?
100 years.
Yeah. But, at 1.35 to 1.4, which is the range it's in now, are people overreacting, or is this?
Yeah, they are overreacting, but they always overreact. You always get it going too far.
On both sides.
Yeah, and the question is, what's going to be the sign that, okay, they stopped overreacting? I think the one thing that's overshadowing everything is Bitcoin. And it's hard to know how much money people have put into this lately, because, when it falls hard like it has been, does that force them to sell stocks also? It's hard to get a handle on exactly what's going on with both the hedge funds and the retail, because I kind of think they're in the same names right now.
Yeah, I think most people just psychology hits and they freak out and sell when shit hits the fan. I've had people hit me up today being like, I'm getting out of this. This happens every few months where people are running for the hills at the worst time too. And I think
that happens all the time.
But this is when it's great buying opportunities because everyone's worried and that's what you want. And this is healthy. I think we talked about for a long time. Dan, you mentioned during the pandemic when we were on here countless times, the NASDAQ is running up like crazy. What's going on here? When's everything else going to catch up? Well, when you look at like, the energy sector, for example, even now after this last couple of days, it's still way behind. So I think this is great. Personally, I look at this, I'm licking my chops here. I bought Tesla yesterday, clearly a day too early, but I'm adding to it today. And I'm looking at this as a great time to add to behemoths. I think Apple is a gift at these levels personally. And I also, on the other end of that, when you look at the Las Vegas Sands of the world and like the Valero Energies, those types of stocks, the way they hold up on days like this, it makes me want to add more to them.
Yeah. And that's where a lot of the money is going, into those type of names.
Yeah, those sectors have actually been doing well. And it's because people are rotating into that stuff. So those haven't even been selling off. They've been doing the complete opposite.
Great.
I think the thing that everybody's probably watching is the NASDAQ just clearly today broke through the 50-day moving average. And people are probably now just assuming it's going to the 100-day. So
I don't think so. I think it held up over 13,000, if you noticed, and bounced like right above that, like at 947 this morning. And then I think that was the bottom.
Well, time will tell. It's always hard to know what the bottom is. But, you mentioned Tesla. What did it get down to today? 615?
Yeah, I mean, it was literally.
And where is it now?
I think 685, 673. I mean, look, the market had somewhat of a strong recovery off the lows, but it's got the feeling that there's a chance it's going right back down to
and a lot of times that's what'll happen. And some of these stocks will test their lows again. That's possible. And it's going to feel a hell of a lot worse the second time than it does the first.
Yeah.
The first time you almost say, oh, it's gone too far, I'm not going to sell. But then when it pops and then hits that low again, that's what really creates the panic. So I would say we haven't had panic here in these names. So, it's hard to say if we've hit bottom for this particular correction. But some of these names, have gotten absolutely obliterated. But
it comes down to if Bitcoin holds up. If that thing still keeps falling off a cliff short term, we're going to be in for
that's kind of what I'm thinking is the problem.
And that was my one ongoing thing. I knew Bitcoin ran up way too much too fast, and everyone kept saying, I need to buy this before it hits 100K. I thought this wasn't even going to be hitting 30K until 2022. So that's where I've been kind of in this mentality of just frustrated, thinking too many people have gotten into crypto at too high of levels, thinking they're missing out on something. And, you know, that's a problem.
Yeah, no, I think that's exactly what's going on here. Because
ARC funds are another thing that worries me about this market, with how many people have definitely bought into these Cathie Wood. You know, every few years you have these people that people look up to as a god or goddess that could do no wrong. And this woman makes a statement as though she's Elon Musk. And everyone's like, oh, well, you see what Cathie Wood did. Well, nothing great lately, I can tell you right now. Whatever she's doing has been dead wrong the last couple of weeks. So
you can almost make an argument she's got a target on her back because her trades now get so crowded by the retail.
Yeah, and that's where, and Dan, even you brought up with the Thomas Lee thing, like no one, no matter how great they are, just like we saw over the years with Michael Jordan, he didn't make every shot or win every game. You don't hear about those games he didn't win. Yeah. But these guys are, of course, going to be wrong. You can't expect even geniuses to never be wrong. They're human. Yeah.
So, well, look, if you have cash on the sidelines, you got to pick a few names that you think are solid for your portfolio. And these are the days that you add to them. I did not think I was going to add to Apple, and I bought Apple today.
It's hard not to. I'm going to be buying more Apple here too, because I already own a lot, but I love Apple. Like, I think they have so much room to run in the years ahead. It's crazy. And what this sell-off has done, if you think about it, if you're a bull and you believe in things being in check here in the months ahead, tech has, I mean, I thought it had room to run before this sell-off. Now I'm just like, okay, well, if this sell-off doesn't continue, we're going to look back at this and being like, man, those were discounts.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think the big question here is tech going to actually be a good sector to even be in this year?
I think so.
This showing you.
I mean, Dan, when you look at all the opportunities in the world with even employment and growth, tech, if it has to go up. If we expect the market to go up, if tech's being a laggard, then we're in for some awful times. We can't just expect oil and banks to be the winners and everything's going to be just great.
Well, it could be the winners for a solid year, and that could be a year where you see 50 to 60% gains in energy.
I don't think that would be a good thing for the world, because too many people, too many young investors are caught up in the future. And
the markets don't care about what young investors are caught up.
The markets care about the fact that where a lot of money is, man, for damn sure. It's just like the markets care about if people
but if hedge funds are not exposed to energy because it was left out to die during the pandemic, and all of a sudden you got Goldman Sachs saying that it's going to be at $70 and then $75 later this year. Historically, that literally means energy is probably going to, no joke, double from here.
Yeah, and that's why I'm long 100K.
No, but that's what I'm saying. Like, when you look at where the money's going to go, it's tough to make the argument that it's going to go into technology at the level that it was last year.
I completely disagree. I think this is just setting up for a much larger bull run, which I told you guys a year ago was going to happen. 2021, this is setting up for a next level huge run up, is my guess. I'm going to be buying into it hard. I'm going to be selling puts today in tech. I look at literally anything from a BABA to an NVIDIA to an MU, and I'm like, all right, great.
Well, yeah,
like, I just don't buy into this as the beginning of way more selling off in tech. If it is, then maybe the world's ending. I'll take the bet that it's not.
Well, you could make the case tech can come off 50% from here and still be highly valued.
I can make the case then we're heading for the world ending if that happens. Right. I don't believe any of that.
Yeah, let me ask you, when that Michael Burry guy, who's famous for his call in the Big Short movie and has made some really good calls over the last year too. He was long GameStop and he was short bonds and he was long this 10-year bond move that's been happening now. He's calling for hyperinflation and put out a piece over the weekend where he was essentially comparing what's going on right now to Germany before the Hitler days. And it obviously coincided with this market. The futures were up Sunday. Then he puts out this piece, and within a half hour, the futures started dropping like a rock, and they haven't looked back. And I guess my question is, what does that mean, hyperinflation? Like, I know it means that there's inflation like crazy, things are going up. But when I think about it, and this is why we're on here live, and I'm asking you so you could shed some light for everyone who's listening. But in my mind, I'm like, oh, inflation, wouldn't that mean that all assets are going to go up like crazy because everything's just going to go up? So why, when he says hyperinflation, is that like a doomsday scenario for the markets?
Yeah, well, there's a difference between hyper and just regular inflation. Hyperinflation is like, let's say, 100% inflation a year. So if you're sitting on cash, it's worth half in a year. So people start panicking when inflation gets out of control and they start buying assets, but then assets are going up so much that the money becomes worth less and less to the point where it's worth nothing.
So what's the solution in a hyperinflation environment? Like if you believe that that's what's going to happen, and I personally don't necessarily believe it just because it seems like there's too many hands of power that are able to manipulate these things, and maybe that's naive of me, but if you do believe that's what's going to happen, like what does that mean? What are you supposed to be doing?
Well, I mean, that's why people bought gold in the past. That's why they're buying Bitcoin now. Something to counteract the dollar. So if it does happen, you've got something that's going to gain value.
But it's so, but that's not stocks. Like, because to me,
stocks do not do well in inflation because they can't keep up. The companies themselves can't keep up with the higher prices.
Gotcha.
Right.
Basically saying, oh, I get what you're saying. Like, obviously, Apple can't come in and double the cost of a phone, which is basically what would be needed for them to actually succeed in a hyperinflation environment.
Yeah, man, it leads to earnings going down and consumer spending going down. That's why it's terrible for stocks. There's less money.
Well, if you think about it, South America, various countries down there have gone through hyperinflation. And what happened down there, I was in Brazil when the inflation rate was 500%. Every single day, they would change the prices in the store to counteract it.
Wow.
And everybody wanted to deal in dollars, not the local currency. So as soon as anyone got local currency, they would quickly convert it into dollars. So if the dollar goes through that, there's got to be something else that people will want to go into.
I'm just going to say, and I want to go back to this in a second, but while we've been talking, I told myself that if the QQQs broke 315, it was going to get real ugly, and they have a massive bid off 315. They're now, let's see what happens here, but it looks like the market might be going back up here. And again,
it will be going back up.
But there's a big bid in the NASDAQ right now. And like, to me, I mean, man, if the QQQs get over 320, I think it could be an awesome moment for tech, but we'll see. But back to what you were saying. So, okay. I mean, what I guess my question then is, what's going to cause that guy to be wrong? Because there's a lot of people out there that are obviously like,
well, there's a lot of smart people that know that could happen. So, the Fed is not stupid. Janet Yellen is not stupid. You hope that they can get control of the deficit down the road and it won't happen. I mean,
gotcha.
That's really what it comes down to.
And if it did, if it did happen, what would be the new currency? Like, I know right now it's the dollar, or do you just, who knows at this point? That's just,
I mean, what George Soros said years ago, and he's so right, the dollar was the best of the worst.
And isn't that still kind of the case? Because isn't everyone in the same situation right now?
That's kind of what saves everything, is that all of them are bad. And I think that's probably what got Bitcoin ignited in a big way, is that all the currencies look pretty horrible.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
It's going to be an interesting decade.
It's going to be an interesting decade for sure. And yeah, I mean, so Dad, you bought some Apple today. Is there anything else you're buying?
I bought a little Qualcomm. What I usually try to do is, if I'm down a certain amount of money, let's say you're down, just for a number, say 20 grand today, I try to buy the same amount I'm down in new purchases.
I like it.
Yeah,
So that way I don't get ahead of it. So if tomorrow's worse, I could buy more tomorrow, right?
and don't you do the same thing on up days?
Not as much as I'd like to, but yeah, that's kind of a good way to trade around your positions. If you think of it like that, unless you're going in and out. Like there's been a couple of really good names today to go in and out of.
Did you see Plug get down to 37 and change this morning?
That was on my list and I wasn't watching it at the time. And that's where you want to have orders down there.
I know.
But
Damn.
that thing got down so
Plug today.
I mean, people who are just very, very cushioned with a lot of cash on the sidelines for moments like this are probably just absolutely crushing it today, which I'll admit I'm not.
Yeah,
I'm not able to do as much as I want on a day like today.
That's the whole reason you want to be always having cash on the sidelines.
Of course.
So you take advantage when this happens.
Absolutely. It's no doubt about it. I mean, there are stocks that were so on sale today, this morning, and maybe you see those prices again. I don't necessarily know if you're going to see certain prices like Micron again and things like that. Like Micron got under 80 today. Here's a fun fact that I've been preaching hard, that I've been investing hard into, that I've told you guys off of this show, but for our listeners, the semiconductor space is the one space where every single company that's reported earnings has beaten expectations, all 100%. You can't say that for any other sector in the entire stock market. And the one that seems to be leading the way right now, even though it's not the favorite, obviously the favorites are NVIDIA and AMD, but Micron's actually up right now. And it was up this morning a lot more, not a lot more, but it's holding up really well. And it probably might have seen its lows this morning. I love Micron. I'm glad that I bought Micron. And I love ACEV, which is that Acronics company that's, even though obviously like right now the SPAC community is just getting demolished because of what happened with SSIV, which is essentially everyone thought the valuation was going to be, I think like 25 or 50 billion. Bottom line is they came out and it was half. And the stock is like down. Well, I don't know what it's down now. I haven't been watching it, but it was down like 35%. And I think there's like a common fear right now that that could just happen to any of these names. So you look at like Play Safe with BFT, and I'm big on Play Studios, which is ACAC, which has gotten zero attention yet, even though I love the name. And then ASAP. Those are my three SPACs that I'm sticking with. But, you know, I think the semiconductor space, if there's going to be any part of tech that does continue to dominate, it's going to be them. And then, you know, yesterday I bought TJ Maxx, which is actually up today, which is nice to say. And XLE has been my dominant energy ETF. And I've been trading a little bit because there's just been such insane opportunities all over the place. But now I'm kind of just waiting to see how this unfolds. And like I said, it looks like, at least in my mind, tech got a big bid, and maybe it's going higher. I'd love to see the QQQs get above 320. That would be like I think a big moment for bulls to come in and try and buy more.
I just grabbed DNMR again. That's impossible not to like down here.
DNMR.
I think you want to see the Microsoft or Apple go positive to really, you know, change the psychology here. Because the biggest holdings in everyone's mutual funds is Apple and Microsoft.
Yeah, and also, wouldn't you kind of, at this point now, put Tesla into that category of a stock that's been so beaten up that once it can kind of start to get its legs again, it could be a good sign for tech in general? Like, I've been watching Tesla almost as much as Apple and Microsoft for a turnaround in the market, because they basically were the darling child of 2020. And
well, you know, Tesla is partly down because of Bitcoin.
Yeah,
it's hard to use that one, I think.
Dad, you'll love this. So Peter Schiff, and the reason I bring him up is because Bob is good friends with his cousins. But anyway, this morning, or it might have been last night, he tweeted something at Elon Musk, basically saying ever since Elon Musk announced that Tesla bought Bitcoin, they've been in a bear market and they've been doing nothing but go down. So then Elon Musk responds to the tweet with the purple zucchini emoji, which represents just dick, like calling him a dick. And then Peter Schiff changed his Twitter name to Peter with that emoji Schiff. So now when you look at him on Twitter, he's got the emoji in his name. It's great. And
You probably don't even know what it is.
no, he knows. Because he responded and was like, I'm assuming because you're calling me a dick, our Clubhouse chat's off. Because I guess they were going to argue Bitcoin on Clubhouse, which I think they're still going to do. So,
yeah, it's crazy day.
Yeah, crazy day. And
you know what I did buy? I bought, I really was pissed at myself for not buying Carnival when it broke through around 22, 23, because it looked like clear sailing. And the stock was flying yesterday and the day before. And then they did a secondary after the close yesterday. So I got a chance and I picked it up at, 24 3/4, which was below the secondary was done at 25.10.
yeah,
So-
you were talking about their name for the last week. Anytime Bob brings up a name, it's almost an obvious that it's going to the moon within the next 48 hours. It's
Really?
real.
I bought some AMC this morning
That was a good call.
and I sold what did I sell? 30% of it. But
You know, I'm just going to throw this out there. Twilio under 400 is a steal for anybody. Well, it's no longer 400. It was 2 seconds ago. This morning, it got down to under 380 and then turned positive for a little bit. In my mind, this is going to be $1 trillion company one day. But I don't know how long tech's going to be beat up. I'm not as confident as Mike that it's going to just rip right back.
Yeah, well,
I think you gotta, it's a long day still. So it may be too early to go all in here, Mike.
Yeah.
I'm not worried about it. No one's getting in my way here, Bob.
And then, Dad, what do you make of Palantir?
I own a small amount, that I bought the other day. And I think if you can pick it up under 25, it's probably okay, but I don't know. I mean, I can't forget that the stock was under $10 not that long ago.
Stock wasn't under $10 at one point.
A lot.
No, that's not true. There's been so many. What was Amazon trading at when it went public?
Well, yeah, but I'm talking about, a couple of months. I'm not talking about years.
I'll tell you a stock I love here to add more to is DPW. That thing has fallen off a cliff the last 2 years. 2 days. And it's when you actually look at what they have going on in their fundamentals, these guys are a beast. And I think this is going to be double here before we even know it.
What is that?
DPW, they're an electronic equipments and parts company. They provide tech solutions for customers in defense, aerospace, and commercial.
Look, I think you could probably buy Boeing going, you're talking about that again.
I'm long a lot of Boeing. That's
I
why
own none of that.
I think just literally for no other reason than it's gotten way too beaten up. Clover is good back to 15. Like this reminds me of FUBA all over again and QuantumScape. It's such a reoccurring pattern with these stocks. They get overheated, they get blown to the upside, then they get blown to the downside, and then they recover back about 50%. It happens with every single one. And this one is just, yeah, I'm going to definitely probably pick up some of this today.
Yeah, definitely, probably. That's a good one.
I'm going to.
I'm adding more to
On
that.
this show, I'm picking it up.
What I would want to know is, everyone's playing these electric car companies. And I was talking to Gary about this today.
Just to be clear, Clover's not an electric car company.
I know, but the charging stations, besides Blink, is anyone else involved in that whole thing?
I mean, I'm sure there are if you did some research on it. I know Blink is one of the bigger names that people like. And look, Blink has also come off a ton in this sell-off.
Yeah, to me, that's probably the best way to play the electric car game. I mean, that's what happened with cell phones. There were so many of them.
That's what happened with anything. Gold mining back
The
in the day.
the big winner was American Tower, right? So
Boozy holding up well. Speaking of cell phones,
what is?
Boozy.
Boozy was $26 though, wasn't it?
I know, but I still think, all things considering, it's holding up well. Like when you look at some of these other high flyers, Bingo is getting spanked.
Yeah, you're telling me.
That whole space is just getting wrecked.
Great. Yeah, that whole space this whole thing is insanely cheap now. It was overvalued.
When you say that, all of these companies that are getting absolutely smacked have zero profits. And that's
And not just that, Bingo was a penny stock like 3 months ago.
Bingo is a phenomenal company, though. That company is going to the moon.
But how do you value a company that has no earnings? So everything is based on runway of cash burn, and many of these companies are going to have to raise more money over time.
Money these days. I'm curious to find like 10 companies in the stock market that are profiting.
Almost get punished. It's almost a punishment if you're a profitable company.
Yeah, I don't know what the point is of trying to make money in a business anymore. It clearly does nothing but makes you not succeed. So I don't see that narrative as meaning much.
Over time, this is what happens.
It's weird because I'm watching the market kind of looking like it's like trying to rally, with tech specifically way off its lows, but I can't really find the names that seem to be moving. Like Apple's not doing anything.
And Facebook's acting well today.
Well, Microsoft is only down, a small percentage now.
Wow, Facebook is up today. That's interesting. Snapchat's getting killed.
Isn't ZG doing well?
It's way back. Yeah, I mean, Mike, all things considering, it was down to under 160 earlier.
All things considering, that thing has fallen off a cliff in the last.
I know, but I mean, that probably is just because if there's a fear that rates are going up, it's like one of the worst stocks to probably be in.
I don't agree with that.
Well, no, because rates going up, Mike, means that people are not going to be buying houses like Banshees.
I mean, you'll never see me buying a house like a Banshee. I don't care if someone's paying me to live there. It's the dumbest purchase on the
half of ZG is, real estate, if not more.
I'm not worried about ZG. I think they're just getting started. Interest rates aren't derailing that company.
Well, yeah, I guess we'll see what happens this afternoon. I'm trying to find stocks that are really moving this market right now, and I guess Microsoft is the one that's trying to make it happen.
Yeah, I'd love to see Microsoft go positive. That would change the whole thinking.
Yeah, we'll be fine. I think we're going to look back at today as the bottom of the barrel for tech discounts.
And just to go over seasonality trends, typically February is a crappy month and then March is a great month. So who knows if that'll happen, but
it will happen without a question. This is going up hard. So, stomach it and make some buys so you don't say, oh, why didn't I buy then?
I do agree that some of these stocks are really, really nice at these levels. Dan, you got under 100 this morning.
I saw that. I'm trying to figure out if I should get back in this stock. I've gotten in and out for a quick buck 4 times and it keeps dropping. Like it's hard to, I don't know. Like where's the support on you?
At 100 for sure.
That thing is like completely collapsed. It's crazy. It's been way overdone.
Yeah, I mean, I personally think it's a good buy here.
How could it not be? I thought that though at 130.
And you might think that at 80.
I would definitely think that at 80. Use Unity software for our listeners.
No, I actually love you here. I'm going to get 20K worth at these levels. I think it's hard not to. It's come down a bit too much the last couple months.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly think like this is going to be a $350 stock within the next few years.
Easily.
So, they're kind of empowering video game makers the same way that Adobe empowers graphic designers. It's definitely a unique company.
They're really hitting the electric car group, though, aren't they?
Not a fan of that
I
sector.
don't know. What's the only one I own is Fisker, which has been great until today. Basically erased all gains today. Fisker. Actually, not really. That stock's still holding up well.
I feel like that space is just the king of erasing gains. It like gets people excited, and then it's like, oh, we're actually not a real sector. Like that EV thing to me is just so much hot air. I don't trust it.
Crazy. Like we talk, like as we're talking, some big comes in for Unity software.
Someone probably saw us talking.
Literally, like someone just bought like $100,000 contract as we're talking about it. Could have been Gene Munster. He's big on that name.
Usually on a day like today, Gene Munster can't be reached.
Yeah, I'm sure he can't because he's doing shit, right?
No, he's
Because
hiding under a table somewhere. He's so bullish. I bet you that guy has a helmet that he puts on.
On days like today.
Yep.
All right, well.
Yeah, I guess let's wrap it at that and watch this market either go down more or go up. Good show.